Hi, my brothers and sisters. Today I want to talk a little bit about difficult people and what they actually mean to us. So we have all met difficult people, the people that goes on our nerves and sometimes drives us crazy, the arrogant bypasser who crosses your path without your consent, or the show-off at work who constantly demands attention and can never sit quiet. They take many shapes, but which of your buttons they push is of less interest, because what is of more importance is what they represent. These people are actually spiritual guides disguised as obnoxious people. Let me explain. When we grow up, we are taught a cultural system that is very much dualistic, meaning it teaches us what's right and what's wrong, what virtues we are supposed to strive for, and what vices we are supposed to condemn. But what we forget during the process is that everything in this world also contains its opposite. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus understood this very well. A famous quote of him is, "Darkness and light are one and the same, and they are defined through each other's presence." In the worldview of Heraclitus, everything was made of contradictory forces. Everything was loaded with underlying conflict between opposites. Like, for example, the surgeon's blade. The knife can both heal, but it can also kill. Or the bet that you make that can make you a winner or a loser. So when we grow up and are taught so one-sidedly to strive for certain values, wherever they may be, like winning, always winning, never be selfish, be disciplined at work, never stress yourself. Then we forget that everything has a price tag that comes along with it, because we cannot choose something without dismissing something else. This is how our shadow is created. The shadow is a part of ourselves that we are unwilling to recognize, and often we are even too blind to see it. Even if we would like to, we say to ourselves that we are good and project our bad sides onto others without knowing it. And then we let them bear our burden. Our culture is full of examples of how we let other groups do our dirty work for us. Most cultures are based on this kind of sacrifice. You could even say that all wars and conflicts are based on this mechanism. So we put all blame on somebody, and then we want to kill this person in order to restore harmony back into our world. For example, in Mesopotamia, there used to be this kind of scapegoat tradition where when society were afraid that something bad was about to happen due to some omen, like an equinox, for example, then they would appoint a false king. This person or king was during a time bestowed with all the privileges of a king. But then when the time was up, he was either killed or he was cast out from society, in hope that whatever bad was about to happen would happen only to him and not to society. This follows a kind of childish psychology, you could say. It's like the kid who puts the pen in the fellow comrade's pocket and then tells the teacher it was him who drew the funny picture of her. It might seem childish, but we have still not ungrown this habit. We still think in opposites. This is bad and this is good. And we still think we can choose one side over the other. We have forgotten Heraclitus' wisdom that everything contains its opposite. Whenever you're triggered by somebody to the point that you cannot let it go, you can be sure that your shadow is somewhere near in the background, laughing at you and your ignorance. The more imbalance you put between your outward-facing facade and your shadow, the more power likely your shadow will have over you. If you completely ignore it, it will most likely be able to take over your mind when activated, and you will have little to say then when it comes to your actions and decisions. So, to give you an example from my life, I used to get very worked up over people who did not give up their seats for elderly people. I could become really agitated over this and would almost ceremoniously look for these people. When I was on any public transport, I was looking for these situations. I wanted to confront these people so bad. And when it did happen, I could make a scene out of it, yelling at, telling the elderly person loudly that he or she could have at least my seat since no one else seemed to care or be caring enough. And then I would pat myself on the back for teaching these guys a lesson. I finally realized that this was, of course, all about my shadow. And from then on, I did a little routine of it. So instead of mechanically offering my seat to some elderly person first, I asked myself if I was tired or felt like it. Sometimes I just didn't do anything at all for the hell of it. And the result was astounding for me. From witnessing these outright assholes on almost every bus ride, to them completely disappear. It's like they vaporized from the face of the earth. I had restored balance in myself in the right way, not by creating a scapegoat for my shadow, but instead I had integrated my shadow inside of myself, and I had taken responsibility for it. The shadow is finally like an outcast that only wants to be brought home. We have so much shadow projection in our culture that when you see it, it seems to be everywhere. From the movie industry, with, for example, horror movies, a perfect example of shadow projection, to racism. Wokeness is another example where we put the shadow on some enemy. Everybody seems to have an enemy, and they love to hate this enemy. To me, it sometimes seems as if our culture is becoming more and more of a containment system for our shadows. Robert Johnson, a famous Jungian analyst, he wrote that we need to move from contradiction to paradox in order to restore the balance in ourselves. So what he means with this is that in contradiction, we portray ourselves as good and sometimes as bad. We have difficulty to be both at the same time. Sometimes we're generous and sometimes we're selfish. We praise ourselves and sometimes, and other times we condemn ourselves. We contradict ourselves this way. We feel fake and like failures to ourselves. What we need to do is see our paradoxical nature and see it for what it is. See the paradoxical side of life. It's good to win, but it's also good to be humble. It's nice to be comfortable, but it's also nice to fight for something. Through accepting these paradoxes, we bring balance to the contradiction within ourselves. This paradoxical nature is best described through the symbol of yin and yang. One such paradox that's especially important to me is the paradox of mind and body. We need to accept that we are both flesh and spirit. This is actually also the deeper meaning of the Christian cross, where the vertical bar is representing the body and the horizontal bar is the spirit. We need to have balance between them to see ourselves fully. If we understand that we are both spirits moving about in a material world that's bound by contradictions, the better we are for it. We are much more likely to awaken if we understand that whenever we choose, we are bound to lose something. That life in this material world is set up for us to understand this universal order. For this reason, shadow integration is therefore very much a spiritual quest, since it lays down the groundwork for our liberation from the material world. So whenever you come across a person who really pushes your button, be thankful for this person, for without him or her, you would not be able to see your shadow, and you would still be caught up in your ego ride, where you are better than him or her in some aspect. This person, you could actually consider this person as a spiritual guide who wants you to expand your humanity, and he or she wants you to free yourself from your ego. Here you're making a deliberate choice as to whether you want to see yourself in him or her, or if you want to live in separation from this person. It's your choice. So as always, thank you for listening to me, and I wish you a joyful day.